Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be reviewing the first 7 detachments that GW has released for Grotsmas. So I told you guys originally that I would be doing a video about this at the end of the month, but I realized how big that video would have been, and it would have been monstrous. So I decided to actually just split it up into several different ones, one video per week covering the detachments of the week. And specifically, we're going to be looking at how the Eldar can deal with these new detachments and what to watch out for in your games. Because, of course, a lot of these are actually really powerful and much stronger than the previous detachments that, those players were using. Not all of them, but some of them. And the ones that are powerful, I will go into depth about why I think they're going to be trouble for the Eldar. So, the first one we're going to look at is Lion's Blade Task Force. Now, this is the Dark Angels detachment. My buddy plays Dark Angels. I play against him probably the most out of everybody. And he was not happy with this detachment. Personally, he didn't think it was great. He said he would, rather remain in Gladius or, whatever. But I have to say, I like it. I like it for a number of reasons. I think it actually brings out the flavor of Dark Angels. When you think about Dark Angels, you think about Ravenwing and Deathwing, and I think this is exactly what Dark Angels players maybe didn't want competitively, but certainly feels like a Dark Angels army. So I really do like this detachment. I think it's really good, and I think Dark Angels players probably shouldn't be complaining about something that GW gave them, to enhance their tactical prowess on the battlefield. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. The detachment rule is in the Lion's Claws. Each time an enemy unit, except vehicles or monsters within engagement range of one of your Ravenwing units, falls back, all models in that enemy unit must take a desperate escape test. So first of all, this is really good for a number of reasons. One, it's basically like having all of your bikes with the Witches special rule. And the thing about Witches is the reason why in Dark Eldar, Witches aren't that great and you don't really use them for what their ability is because they're so fragile. They just die to the clapback pretty much every single time. I recently had a just kind of a fun game with somebody on Tabletop Simulator from the Discord in which, a unit of 5 witches charged a unit of Coprolite warriors and lost. They killed more models, but they still lost because, that's just Dark Eldar for you. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just a matter of fact. They just don't survive long. But Ravenwing units are actually pretty tough. So you can charge these into a shooting unit. It's not going to deal much damage back to you. And you can, pretty much reliably keep them in combat or else they're going to suffer casualties. I think that's really good. And then, of course, when they're battle shocked, subtract 1 from the tests. Not a bad ability, honestly, for Ravenwing units. And I think it kind of fits in perfectly with what Ravenwing units should be doing is flanking and supporting the Deathwing. Then they get a rule for Deathwing units. Each time a Deathwing unit from your army declares a charge, if one or more targets of that charge are within engagement range of one or more Ravenwing units from your army, add 2 to the charge roll. So there's a lot of synergy here, and I really like that. I really want to see something like this in the Eldar Codex. I think that would be really awesome for one of the detachments if there was some sort of synergy between aspects and guardians or something like that. I think that'd be really cool. We probably won't see that, but it's an interesting concept. Now, the restrictions, of course, is that your army can include Dark Angels units, but cannot include any Adeptus Astartes units drawn from any other chapter. That makes sense. This is already in play anyway. You can't take, could you imagine taking this and also taking something like, Death Guard or something like that? Come on, or Death Company, I should say, not Death Guard, Death Company. It would be ridiculous. So that's the restriction there. Now, as for the enhancements, we have the, I don't even know how to pronounce this, but the Calibantite ornaments. You add 1 damage to the attacks characteristic of the melee weapons. So damage 2 goes to damage 3, damage 1 goes to damage 2. That's great, right? You get damage 3 power fists. Perfect for 15 points. That's a no-brainer. There's a lot of Space Marine characters, Terminator-like characters who would love to see this. You know, damage 3 Thunderhammers, etc. Lord of the Hunt, 15 points, Ravenwing model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it fell back, and you can reroll Desperate Escape test taken for models in the bearer's unit. Also, a great enhancement for the type of playstyle that you're going to be using with the detachment rule, right? You're going to be charging into a lot of units with these Ravenwing bikes. So it makes sense that you'd be able to, you know, fall back, declare a charge, shoot, all that good stuff for free. That's 15 points. That's a great enhancement. Stalwart Champion, Captain, Chaplain, or Lieutenant only. While the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, add 1 to the objective control characteristic of models in the bearer's unit. Truthfully, I understand why they have this. It's for the Deathwing, right? It's for those Terminators to get on the objective and not be out OC'd very easily. Unfortunately, the problem with Dark Angel's Deathwing is that they're just out OC'd. I've had instances where I've had Deathwing Knights on an objective. I shove 3 jet bikes onto the objective and I've taken it from them, right? I shove 3 Wind Riders on there or 3 Reavers on there and I just steal the objective away. So having this on your champion makes that impossible, and I think that's a pretty good upgrade for a unit. Then we have the Fulgus Magna. Deathwing model only. Once per battle at the end of your opponent's turn, the bearer's unit is not within engagement range. You can use this enhancement. If it does, remove the bearer's unit from the battlefield and place it into Strat Reserve. Pretty good. It's a once per game Sky Leap, essentially, because if it's on a Deathwing model, chances are it has Deep Strike, right? I know not all Deathwing models have Deep Strike, but the Terminator ones do, and I think that's beautiful, right? So all these enhancements are good. I don't see the complaint yet, right? I don't see the reason why Deathwing players, or should say Dark Angels players, would be upset at this. Like my buddy. So we look at the stratagems. Now maybe it's a strats, right? But I've looked over these and they look pretty good. Overpowering extraction. It's in the command phase. You target a model or a unit in your army. Select 1 enemy unit within engagement range, and that enemy unit must take a battle shock test. When doing so, if the unit has a Deathwing or Ravenwing keyword, subtract 1 from the result. You're probably always going to have that keyword from that unit, so there you go. You can only use it once per battle round, but it's in the command phase, right? So that means you can deny an objective from your opponent if you're fighting on an objective. Now, as for the Eldar, this is not going to affect them that much because the truth of the matter is a lot of our stuff either has reasonably high OC or, you know, they're just going to be dead. If enough models from that enemy unit are already on the objective and, you know, you have a couple models left in your unit, it's going to die anyway. You're probably not going to get the objective. So that's not a big deal for us, but it can be very good against other factions. You have Armor of Contempt. I don't need to tell you guys what that does. It's just -1 AP value. You got Strength and Unity. The fight phase just after the enemy unit has selected its target. If that enemy unit is within range of 1 or more Ravenwing units, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. If that enemy unit is within engagement range of 1 or more Deathwing units, then you subtract 1 from the wound roll as long as the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness characteristic of the target. Wow. That's pretty good, right? Makes your Deathwing units tougher in the fight phase, makes your Ravenwing units tougher, harder to hit. I don't see any problem with this. Now, the only thing is you can't stack it with Armor of Contempt, right? Which kind of sucks. But there are instances where you don't care because they're going to be hitting you with such high AP and stuff like that. It's not going to matter if you have Armor of Contempt or not because they're going to go to your invul save anyway. So Strength and Unity is a pretty good stratagem for reducing damage, which is what Space Marines do best. Okay, so we go up here, we have Knights of Iron, movement or charge phase, 1 Ravenwing unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a normal, advance, or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain features. Guys, at this point, you should be... if Dark Angels players think this detachment sucks, they should be slapping themselves because this is one of the best things you can have in an army that revolves around bikes, mounted units that can't normally move through terrain features. Now you can not only move and advance, but you can also charge through terrain features. So you don't need to worry about that stupid, you know, I mean, you kind of have to worry about screening and stuff, obviously, but you don't have to worry as much about it in the charge phase. You can just go through terrain features. That's really powerful. Only 1 CP, too. Excellent. And again, your Ravenwing units are going to want to be in combat, so this is a perfect stratagem. Illuminating Fire. Your shooting phase just after Ravenwing unit from your army of selected targets. Select one enemy within 12 of your unit that was selected as a target of one or more attacks. Okay. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Deathwing unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, add one to the wound roll. Great. Right? That's like Doom. That's like having Doom in your army from Eldrad. That's for 1 CP. That's great. I would actually say it's better than Doom because, well, you know, you need Eldrad for Doom, and on this, you only just need a Ravenwing unit, so that could be any Ravenwing unit. That's a really good ability. Inescapable Wrath. Now, people have been kind of frothing at the mouth on this one, how OP it is. I actually think it's good, but it's not super good. It just basically helps Dark Angels players not get out OC'd on objectives, just like I was talking about before with like trash units or garbage units. I can't just throw a unit of jet bikes on an objective and say, hey, I steal the objective from you, right? So basically it happens at the end of your opponent's charge phase. One Deathwing infantry or Deathwing walker unit that is within 6 inches of that enemy unit is eligible to declare a charge against that unit. Kind of like a heroic intervention, but in, you know, basically against an enemy unit that hasn't made contact yet. You declare that charge, and then, you know, obviously it doesn't count as a charge, so you don't receive strikes first. So there's situations where you don't really want to do this. It is 2 CP, but it is very powerful, and it does, you know, help significantly. And by the way, it's going to be during your opponent's turn, so you get to choose the order in which you fight, right? So all of the enemy units that had made charges are going to obviously strike first, but you can use this to basically go before any remaining combats or ongoing combats. This is a strong detachment, no joke, no doubt. I think that a lot, well, at least I haven't talked to too many Dark Angels players, but my buddy who plays Dark Angels was unimpressed by the detachment. He said it took way too much for the abilities to go off, and I just think that's a lazy man's kind of, you know, excuse for not wanting to kind of think about tactics and stuff like that. And, you know, I think it's, if you don't run Ravenwing, you just run the Deathwing and that's it. You know, what would it hurt to throw a few Ravenwing units in your army, you know, a few small bike units in your army so you can unlock those synergies? I think it's a really good detachment. I love it. Personally, I'm not a Dark Angels player, never will be. I played them briefly in, I think it was 6th edition when the Dark Vengeance, I want to say it's Dark Vengeance box came out with Dark Angels and can't remember the other army in there, but I think it was Chaos Space Marines. I played it a little bit and I enjoyed the little narrative that they had in Dark Vengeance, but I didn't enjoy playing Dark Angels in bigger games, even though I did unfortunately purchase a couple of extra units. I really just didn't like them, so I ended up giving them away, selling them off. But yeah, I think this is a great detachment. It looks awesome, awesome stratagems, awesome enhancements, great detachment rule that focuses on synergy. It's not just this OP thing that is granted to every unit in the army, like we'll see in other detachments. And I think it's a really good addition to the Dark Angels. And yeah, I hope we see more players using the Dark Angels detachment in their games moving forward. All right, let's look at the next one. We have Tyranid. So the Tyranids, you know, have a codex. They probably didn't need another detachment really, but they got one, of course, like all other codexes. No big deal. Now, Tyranids have a soft spot for me because Tyranid players, well, I'll say this, the old school Tyranid players, the Tyranid players who have been playing since 4th edition, since 3rd edition, have a special place in my heart because they have gone through some of the most horrible, and unbalanced experiences in the entire game. They're kind of like the Eldar in a lot of ways. They've gone through entire editions where their army was complete crap, and they've gone through editions where their army was so OP no one wanted to play against them. So they've been in that kind of camp that Eldar's been in, and for Tyranid players, Nid players out there, I like that you guys got a detachment, but it seems like kind of a weird one, to be honest with you. Now, we go through this. It's basically based around warriors. So, leader beasts, Tyranid warriors, and winged Tyranid prime units from your army have a 5+ invul save. Okay, great. That just makes them more durable. So, it seems like it's incentivizing a lot of warriors, right? Just warrior spam, so to speak. But we don't know that for sure yet, so let's go ahead and wait and see on that. Keywords: Tyranid warriors with ranged bioweapons and Tyranid warriors melee bioweapon units gain the Tyranid warriors and battle line keywords, which is good. Means you can take more of them. Again, it seems like they want you to spam these things. While such a unit is not battle shocked, they have an OC of 3 instead of their normal OC of 2. Great, so they're better on objectives. It just seems like they're wanting you to buy a bucket load of Tyranid warriors, and they're really being unashamed about it. GW's just showing their deck right here, and they're saying, buy a shitload of warriors because we need to sell them, guys. They're not that good. People don't take them that much in their armies. Here you go. Here's a warrior detachment. Let's rev up that revenue. That's kind of what it seems like it is, and I don't know how fun that is, to be honest. I think the most fun Tyranid builds that I've seen are, things that have a bunch of different monsters in it, or, they're just a more balanced list. They have more bioorganisms. There's a, there's a plethora of different bioorganisms supporting each other and, kind of working together to, defeat your opponent. I really just don't like any army that just spams one thing over and over again like a plague. So I'm not a fan of this detachment, but I don't think it's bad. I think it could be good against a lot of opponents. So let's check out the enhancements. We have the Synaptic Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant model only. During the declared battle formations, a bearer can be attached to a Tyranid warrior unit. That's really good. It allows some rerolls, I believe. I believe the Tyranid, I want to say the Neuro Tyrant gives +1 to hit or rerolls data. Some sort of bonus to Tyranids, which is really good, so that's nice. Can join Tyranid warriors. Really, the only reason this is here is because they want you to spam as many warriors as possible, so they want your warrior units to be led by something other than a, Tyranid prime. You can only have 3 Tyranid primes in your army, and that's it. So you're going to need more models to lead your units. Ocular Adaption, Winged Tyrant Prime, Tyranid Prime. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Okay, not bad. +1 to hit. That would be really cool with probably the ranged unit. Again, I'm not a Nid player, but I'm guessing a big unit with bioweapons, ranged bioweapons, would be really cool with +1 to hit. And you could probably put a few stratagems on those as well, make them a really good shooting unit. Sensory Assimilation, 20 points. Winged Tyranid Prime. Again, all these are Tyranid Prime models. Each time an attack targets a bearer's unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Okay, so it's like stealth. So this would be really good on a melee unit of warriors. What do you know? Right? It just seems like they just really want to sell warriors and winged tyrant primes here. Winged Tyranid primes. Elevated might, Tyranid model only. So this could be put on anything, I guess, that's a character. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which advanced. That's great. Little expensive for that, but that's awesome. They don't have access to that anyway, so that's a great thing. Even for 30 points, I'd pay 30 points for it. Seems pretty good. So that's pretty much, I mean, the enhancements seem okay. Seems like they just want you to make warriors really good, and that's exactly what they're doing. Make warriors great again. Okay, let's check out the stratagems here. God, some of these words I hate pronouncing. Synaptic amplification. There we go. God. When you're shooting phase or fight phase, 1 Tyranid's unit from your army that has not been selected shoot or fight. If that unit is a Tyranid warrior's unit, select up to one endless multitude unit from your army that is not battle shock within 6. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in those units makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. And if it's a Tyranid Warriors unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 as well. So wound roll of 1, hit roll of 1. So again, it's it's a really good damage stratagem for warriors. It's an okay stratagem for endless multitude. I think the real thing about this is you're never really taking an endless multitude unit except for gargoyles, right? So you probably take some gargoyles. You get +1 to wound or rerolls wound rolls of 1 with them, and then with the Tyranid Warriors unit, you're rerolling hit rolls of 1 as well. So this would be, I think, really good on a ranged Warriors unit where you're rerolling hit rolls of 1. You are getting +1 to hit via the ability, the enhancement with the winged prime, and you're just going for a full ranged build with that warrior unit, just gunning down everything that comes in the midboard. I think that's pretty cool. Again, kind of boring. It's just warriors again, but still kind of goes with the theme of the list. Spontaneous hypocorrosion. Your shooting or fight phase. One Tyranid's unit from your army that has not been selected, shoot or fight. Until the end of the phase, add 2 to the strength characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by your models in the unit. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by Tyranid warriors and winged Tyranid prime models in your unit. Great. That seems like another one that's great for ranged Tyranid warriors, which are not being purchased or or selected in armies right now. So that's pretty cool. +2 strength on their venom cannons and, death spitters and all sorts of, stuff that they have. That's awesome. That's cool. 1 CP for it. Sounds good. It's any Tyranid unit as well, so you can technically put it on things like Maleceptors or whatever they're called, the endocrines, right? So that's pretty cool. You can get some really good value out of those models too. So yeah, pretty good stratagem there. Restorative Impulse, your command phase. One Tyranid's Warriors unit that is below starting strength, return 1 destroyed model to your unit. Can't be a character though. That's pretty good. It's just a revive ability for 1 CP. I'm going to just say it right now. This is just in case you don't have enough OC on an objective and you need more OC. You really don't want to use this for any other reason. Returning a single model to your unit for a CP isn't generally worth it, unless it's going to grab you an objective. Okay, synaptic micronodes. God, they have to go out of their way to make this hard to pronounce. Your movement phase. One Tyranid Warriors unit from your army. Select one objective marker that you control that you're in range of. That objective or marker remains under your control. Okay, so it's sticky objectives, right? So in your movement phase, make an objective sticky. That's great. I would love this for an Eldar faction to have. Just a 1 CP, you can use it at the beginning of the game. You don't have to take sticky units in your army, which frees up points for other stuff. You can just make an objective sticky. That's really good. Parasitic Payload, your shooting phase. One Tyranid Warriors unit with a range of bioweapons. Okay, let's see. It has ignores cover. Alright. And after you're finished shooting, the models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. That's pretty good. So, you're going to need some good ranged power here, but means Tyranid Warriors can remove cover for 1 CP, and then it's like a Viper or something like that. You don't get any cover anymore. Pretty good. This is good against Eldar. This is a good one to have against Eldar units that are benefiting from cover. Really powerful. Alright, last one. Synaptic Shield. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected targets. You target one Tyranid Warriors unit from your army. Okay, if it's a Tyranid Warriors unit, select up to one Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked within 6 inches of it. And it just subtract 1 from the wound roll. Okay, so same thing as we've seen before, right? -1 to wound, which is good. -1 to wound from the Endless Multitude unit and also the Warrior unit. Alright. Nothing spectacular, but it can make, gargoyles a little harder to kill from, units like Swooping Hawks or something like that. It can make warriors a little bit harder to kill from things like shuriken cannons, stuff like that. So, this is Okay, so here's my synopsis on this. It's a good army. It's gonna be, well, it's really a force that kind of relies on swinging one way or the other and just kind of out toughnessing your army, if that makes sense. I can't think of the word right now for it, but it's an army that revolves around just throwing as many warriors as possible on the field and making sure that you can't kill them, right? Essentially is what it does. It just overloads your ability to deal with them. And I don't like armies like this, to be honest with you. It's like why a lot of people don't like Imperial Knights. If you don't take the right weapons, you're just not going to be able to deal with them. Just pure and simple. So I think the concept is cool. I think it looks powerful to me. It doesn't look very tricky. It's just a lot of very straightforward kind of play. And that's where some players will kind of drop off and be like, well, I don't play Tyranids for straightforward play. I want to play them very strategically and sneaky and stuff like that. And you guys have detachments for that. They're not the most powerful in the game, don't get me wrong, but they are very sneaky and kind of, tricky. And this one just seems very spammy. So that's what I think about this detachment. GW wanted to sell warriors, so they made something that is good against warriors. I think if you're an Eldar player and you're going against something like this, the thing you have to realize is that they're going to just pile onto the mid objectives with their entire army. You can field, I think, up to 72 warriors with this list. And I don't know if somebody wants to take that many warriors. I think you want to take other units in this list as well, but it's mostly going to be warriors. That's just going to be hard to deal with. But we do have weapons that can deal with them. Fire dragons are pretty good against them, except now with the 5-up invul save, maybe wind riders are better, just point for point at dealing with units like this. Also, so you don't have to deal with Overwatch. So if you do have those units in your army, you're kind of good to go. But if you don't, if you're running a traditional kind of Eldar build that focuses on scoring, you're going to have a really hard time getting those primary objectives. I'm just going to tell you right now. So, yeah, a little bit of an odd detachment, but something that's, at least interesting. It's, if not boring to play. I would not want to play this type of list, but I don't think it's bad necessarily. Okay, let's go to the next one. And this is the Thousand Suns detachment. Now, the Tyranid detachment was pretty good as far as effectiveness on the battlefield. This detachment is probably the worst that I've read in a long time. This is almost as bad as AdMech was at the very beginning of the edition when they had their rad bombardment ability, and it basically did nothing turn one because you could just decide to be battle shocked and nothing would happen. And the only thing that Eldar suffered from was maybe not gaining a fate dice from your Guardian Defenders turn one. So, yeah, pretty awful. But let's go ahead and read it, and I'll explain why it's terrible. And let's go ahead and read the detachment rule. Flow of magic. This works almost exactly like the Necron detachment does, the Canoptic Court, where you have to gain control over mid objectives to gain the effects, which isn't bad on its own, but let's check the effects. So your deployment zone is always within your army's flow of magic. At the start of any phase, if you control at least half the objective markers in no man's land till the end of that phase, it's also in your flow of magic. If you control at least half the objective markers within your opponent's deployment zone, so their home objective, that is also in your flow of magic. Here's the ability. So that's a pretty hard one to get with Thousand Suns, first of all, because they don't have very many units anymore because everything got so nerfed. Each time a Thousand Suns model from your army makes a psychic attack, and it's just psychic attacks, guys, reroll a wound roll of 1. Oh, so good. If such a model is wholly within your army's flow of magic, so this one should be really good, right? Each time it makes a psychic attack, add 1 to the wound roll instead. So it gets rid of the reroll to 1 and just gives +1. Man, it's better, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere close to the other ones. This should have been reroll all wounds. Why just +1 to wound? It should be reroll all wounds. It's kind of like the Canoptic Court. That's how the Canoptic Court works, and that's why it's good. It's because they have really good data sheets that can reroll their, I think it's hit rolls, reroll their hit rolls, and be super powerful, right? And they can really just wreck stuff. This is just not good. So not only do you have to control the battlefield to be able to do this, control objectives, which again, Thousand Sons don't do that well because they don't have a lot of models. They're kind of like Eldar in that way. But the army ability, the bonus you get is not good either. And it's only psychic attacks, so it's not like it's all attacks. It's only the psychic ones in your army, which isn't everything. Alright, but maybe the enhancements are good, right? So let's check out the enhancements. Arcane Might is the first one, Thousand Sons model only. Add one to the strength characteristic of psychic weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit. Okay. But it's psychic weapons, so it's really only going to be like the leader's weapon, right? While the bearer's unit's wholly within your flow of magic, add 2 to the strength characteristic of psychic weapons equipped by models in that unit. Instead, again, psychic weapons. So, not really super useful. I mean, good for the characters, but not really good for everything. Empowered Manifestation. While the bearer's unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, add 6 to the range of psychic abilities, including rituals, right? And each time a model in the bearer's unit takes a hazardous test for a psychic weapon, you can reroll his roll. Hey, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. That means you can always overcharge your psychic attacks. Even though they're hazardous, you can reroll the result. That's great. This is a good enhancement. Unfortunately, while the bearer's unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, so it's good, but it's not that good because you have to be within the flow of magic, which is hard to do as a Thousand Sons player. Alright, let's go to the next one. Empiric Onslaught. Thousand Sons. While the bearer's unit's wholly within the flow of magic, again with this stupid flow of magic thing, add 3 to the attack's characteristic of ranged psychic weapons equipped by the bearer. Again, not bad. That's pretty good. But you gotta be within the flow of magic, and that's only really going to be a thing in the first part of the game, depending on the opponent. There's some opponents that are never going to allow you to be in control of middle objectives. They're just not. They're going to crowd the objectives and they're going to say, kill me, or you're not going to be able to move on to it. And that destroys every single enhancement on this list. Alright, last one. Noctilith Mantle. Thousand Sons. While the bearer's unit is on the battlefield and it is wholly within the army's flow of magic, again, models in that unit cannot be selected to use any rituals. Wait, am I reading this right? While the bearer's unit is on the battlefield, it is, okay, I read it wrong. It is wholly within your army's flow of magic. So this is the only one that, basically it means you're always within the flow, so you're always going to be able to get the +1 to your wound rolls. And it's just, your whole army, right, their psychic attacks are +1 to wound. Or not whole army, whole unit. Again, it's not that good, right? I mean, you can't use rituals with the unit. Why? That makes no sense. Why would you not be able to use this? It just baffles me. I don't know who writes these rules and makes these so restrictive to where you can't even use the ability. Hexwarp Thrallband. Oh. I'm sorry. Honestly, I did a video on Thousand Sons. I was like, is it possible to beat Thousand Sons? Now, of course, they're more balanced because they did some points nerfs and stuff. I really think that the reason why Thousand Sons are broken isn't because of points. It's because of the rituals that are just so powerful in that detachment, that first detachment they got. The combos and synergies and there's a stifling amount of stuff you can do in that original detachment. And this just doesn't seem good. So let's look at the strats. I don't think it gets much better, but we have Warding Hex, Command Phase, 1 Psyker unit from your army that is within range of an objective. Marker, if it's wholly within your army's flow of magic. Great. Again, with this flow of magic nonsense. That objective marker remains under control until your opponent's level of control. Okay, so it's a sticky objective thing, so they gave another detachment sticky objectives. They gave it to Nids, they gave it to these guys. It's not bad. That's cool. I wish they would give more detachments throughout the game sticky. That's cool. Needs to be in your... See, this is the other thing, right? It's like, the Nid one, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be in control of the objective. With the Thousand Sons one, it's making you be within the flow of magic, which means really, realistically, it's only going to be your home objective that gets to do this. Wrath of the Doomed. That's a really good... That's a good name. Wrath of the Doomed. It's very Zinchi. Okay, so fight phase just after an enemy unit selected targets. I don't think the flow of magic thing is in here, but let's see. I haven't read it so far. 1,000 suns unit from your army that was selected. Okay, right, of course. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, roll a d6, adding 1 to the result if your unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic. On a 4 plus, do not remove it from play. That destroyed model can fight. Okay, so it's fight on death on a 4 plus, but if you're within the flow of magic, you fight on 3 plus. Um, I don't know. I mean, are many Thousand Suns units that good in combat? I mean, the characters are, right? But I guess the Terminators are. They have Terminators. So maybe you run some Terminators with this detachment? But then, I mean, you're fighting on death, but you're still dying, so you could just shoot the Terminators and not even worry about this. Yeah, that's I mean, it's good situationally, but not good altogether. Strands of Time. Your movement phase just after Thousand Sun Cycle falls back. Okay, so it's a fallback thing. That could be promising. Thousand Suns don't normally have a fallback shoot charge mechanic. Until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot, or so it's not and, but it's or declare a charge in turn which it fell back. That's fine. You're just going to want to shoot anyway. You're not going to want to charge back in usually. If your unit is wholly within your flow of magic when targeted, then until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in which a turn fell back. Okay, that's fine. I think this is good. Fallback and shoot is great for 1 CP. Thousand Suns kind of need that. But do you want to give up all the other good stuff in the other detachment for this? Probably not. Probably not. Through the Veil. Start of your reinforcements up your movement phase. 1 Rubric Marine or Scarab Cult Terminators unit from your army that is in Strat Reserves. If it's a Rubric Marines unit, it has Deep Strike. Okay, so it gives Deep Strike to Rubric Marines. That's okay, I guess. They already kind of have that in the other detachment with that once per game teleport, but there you go. I guess that's kind of okay. If it's a Scarab Cult Terminator unit, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within your army's flow of magic and more than 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy models. Oh, again with this flow of magic thing, right? So it's a great thing. It's like, oh, 6-inch deep strike. Cool. This is, by the way, I think 6-inch deep strike should be everything, right? But of course, armies have 3-inch. So I think at this point, if you have to have the flow of magic, maybe you should give them the 3-inch, right? Jeez. If a Scarab Occult Terminator's unit is targeted with this stratagem, it is not eligible to declare a charge in the same turn. Well, that's sad. The one thing I thought they would at least let them charge if they have to be within the flow of magic, and 6 inches away from enemy models. It's a giant based unit. It's 40 millimeters each model. The base size is massive. You'd at least think they could charge afterward, but they can't. Oh well. Alright, Scouring Warp Flame, your shooting phase. 1,000 Sun Cycle unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase and is wholly within your army's flow of magic. Oh my god, that's gonna be a meme. Like, that's gonna be such a good meme. Somebody out there, please make a meme about the flow of magic and having to be within the flow of magic to take a shit. Like, sir, I need to go behind the bushes and take one. Are you within the army's flow of magic? No? Then get back in line. You can't take a shit. Honestly, that's horrible. All right, so let's see what it does. In fact, until the end of the phase, ranged weapons in the model's unit have the ignores cover ability, which isn't great because I mean, don't Thousand Suns players just take flamers on everything anyway that ignore cover? After your unit has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. Well, that part's good. So this is good, but you have to be within the flow of magic, which sucks. Kaleidoscopic Tempest. Surprised I got that one. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit is selected targets. 1,000 Sun Psychic unit. Oh my god, thank god. I thought it was going to say the flow of magic. That was selected as the target of one or more of the unit's attacks. Until the end of phase, your unit has the stealth ability. Oh, cool. Oh, here we go. Here's the flow of magic. If your unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, each time an attack targets your unit, it has the benefit of cover against that attack. There we go. So if you want the benefit of cover, you gotta be within the army's flow of magic. But you gain stealth. I think for 1 CP, gaining stealth is fine. It's just it's just stupid that everything has the flow of magic in it, and it's like you're never gonna be within the flow of magic, you know? You're gonna have to totally revamp the whole army. You're gonna have to totally like build it from the ground up. I don't even think things like Rubric Marines are that good in that list. I think this is another boring detachment that really requires you to heavily focus on primary objectives. And I'm not sure that Thousand Sons are good at that. I don't think they're that good at that. I don't think Scarab Cult Terminators are super tough and able to really do that well. Yeah, I don't like this detachment at all. I think it's garbage. And to be honest with you, I think it's an F. If I had to grade it from A through F, I'd say it's an F because it's just, it doesn't do what it wants to do. It doesn't allow you to use the detachment ability. That's horrible. Anyway, so yes, what do I think about this one? Awful. I'm sorry, Thousand Sons players out there. My condolences. You still have a great detachment in your first one. Use that one. You know, use this page as toilet paper, print it out from GW, use it as toilet paper, and move on with your life. The flow of the toilet will become your flow of magic. Let's go to the next attachment. Okay, now just I'm just gonna clarify here real quick before we get into this. I've already read this detachment. I've already watched a video on it. It is possibly one of the most broken detachments I've ever seen. And the only saving grace that says, oh, well, maybe this won't be that broken is because AdMech units are relatively cheap and they're relatively crappy. So a lot of the bonuses that they get end up not being super OP because their units are not that good. They're more of a hordy kind of army right now. And, that means that the units that can be targeted with these really good abilities and stratagems aren't super powerful. But let's go into it. So, Halo Creed Battle Clade. And by the way, I'm happy for the Adeptus Mechanicus players out there who have spent, $3,000 on their army and really just want it to be good and maybe don't put the time into it or don't have the time to put into it as some of the pros out there that play, 4 games a week consistently to like master the army. I, I'm glad because now you're going to have something that's really fun to play, really interactive, super tricky, and you're basically going to be able to get better with a better detachment, have some actual motivation to play your army again. So let's go ahead and read this. I'm not hating on Adeptus Mechanicus players at all. I think you guys are cool. It's just, this is a really powerful detachment, and you guys should be happy, but also, yikes, I wonder how this is going to affect competitive play. Okay, detachment rule. Neurospheric transference. So you get to select a number of units in your army in a strike force that's 2 in your command phase, which is already kind of cool that it's just a select 2 units thing. Until the start of the next command phase, they gain the Halo override keyword. Then you select one of these abilities for them to get. So they can get +2 movement, they can get +1 toughness, they can get advance and charge, and they can get stealth. Pretty cool. That's a pretty cool ability. I think it's great. I think this is going to be something that Battle Focus is going to look like. It's going to be like Battle Focus allows you to move, 6 inches after you shoot. You select, Incursion 1 unit, Strike Force 2 units, Onslaught 3 units. I think that's probably what Battle Focus is actually going to be, believe it or not. Now that I think about it more and more, it's probably not going to be just everything gets a D6-inch movement because, that would be insane, right? I was thinking about it last night and I was like, you know, D6 on everything in the army, like every turn, is like kind of insane, right? So, like, maybe they won't do that. But we'll have to wait and see for the Eldar book to come out. All right, let's look in the enhancements. That's already really good. Enhancements. Oh, one more thing. I didn't even know this, but the video I watched said that this doesn't just apply to Adaptus Mechanicus models. You can bring in a knight, an Imperial Knight ally, and use this on it. Now, a lot of people are pissed about this. I actually don't think it matters because Adeptus Mechanicus, are the ones who create Titans, are they not? So it makes sense if they could bring in a Titan and say, hey, it's getting stealth, or it's getting +1 toughness. it's not benefiting from, most things, but it is benefiting from the detachment rule, which is kind of cool. But it's just not benefiting from all the stratagems and so forth. Okay, let's look at the enhancements. Transcir... God. Transciracular Dyad Wafers. What the fuck? 30 points. Who comes up with these fucking names? Cybernetica Datasmith. Oh, no wonder, because he's a datasmith. He has to say everything in code. When the bearer is attached to Stellan robots, until the end of the battle, models in that unit have the Doctrina Imperatives ability and gain the Halo Override keyword. Cool. So normally the robots don't get the detachment bonus, I think. So this gives them the detachment bonus. And okay, so however, this unit cannot be selected when selecting units as part of the neurotransference detachment rule. Oh, okay, so they just gain a permanent. It looks like what they do is they just gain this permanently. They just get either +2 to their movement, +1 toughness, advance in charge, or stealth for the whole battle, but they can't be selected for this ever again. So you can't use, I think there's a stratagem that allows you to use this on another unit. They can't gain 2 of the abilities, if I'm reading that correctly. So that's pretty good. Just +1 toughness robots or stealth robots is really cool. Or advance and charge robots. I think that's awesome. Okay. Cognitive reinforcement, and plus all these are really expensive, so it makes sense why they're so good. Adaptus Mechanicus model only, excluding the cybernetic. Yeah, could you imagine putting both of these on something like that? Yeah, excluding the Datasmith model. The Conqueror Imperative and Protector Imperative are both active for the Bears unit. That's really good too. So I think the Conqueror Imperative gives them. I'm a little rusty on my Adaptus Mechanicus rules, but I think Protector gives them like plus or -1 to hit, if I'm not mistaken, and then Imperative, Conquer Imperative maybe gives them +1 to hit. I don't know. It's something like that, but that's pretty good. So correct me if in the comments I'm wrong about that, but it's a pretty good ability. It gives them essentially the army special rule. So, and they're always active. You don't get to choose. Normally, you have to choose either the Conqueror or Protector each turn. And for this Bears unit, they just get both all the time. That's pretty good. Sanctified Ordnance. Adaptus Mechanicus model only. Add 6 to the range characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by the models in the bearer's unit. And each time it takes a hazardous test, you can reroll the result. I think there's a unit that does like a bunch of dev wounds or something like that. It's like a sniperish type unit that has like these really good rifles that have dev wounds on it. So that's really good for that for only 10 points. That's beautiful. That makes the unit actually do some good damage. Inloaded lethality. 15 points, Tech Priest Dominus or Tech Priest Manipulus. Add 3 to the attacks characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons and 1 to the damage characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. That's awesome. That makes the Tech Priest actually good in combat, so that's cool too. Not the best out there, but still cool. So yeah, so far it's looking great. Now, if we go down to the stratagems, this is where I'm kind of like, oh wow, okay. Adaptus Mechanicus gets everything. They gave them everything, guys. Let's go ahead and read this. Eradication protocols. Shooting or fight phase. 1 Adaptus Mechanicus unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1, and if it's Halo Override, reroll a hit roll of 1. That's amazing. Again, Halo Override, perhaps giving the unit advance in charge, being able to, reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 as well. That's very powerful for 1 CP. Next thing, targeting override. Your shooting phase or fight phase. And again, 1 Adaptus Mechanicus unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 5+ scores a critical hit. Well, there you go. There's our crit on 5s, which, by the way, I think that the Aspect Warrior detachment for the Eldar is going to have this as their damage. It's going to be crit on 5s, guys. I think that's where we're going with this. Makes sense. That's really powerful. And it's just, okay, so it's critical hit, by the way. It's not critical wounds, so you're not crit dev wounding on 5s, but you're getting sustained 5s and lethal 5s, which is really strong. Neural overload. So 1 Adeptus Mechanicus unit from your army If your unit is Halo Override, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Select one. Okay, so if it's already Halo Override, it does suffer additional damage. It's like you're just overriding the shit out of it. The robot can't compute, cannot compute, but it's freaking going berserk. It's like, the robots in Fallout when they just go ape shit when you do enough damage to them. That's kind of what this is. Select one override ability. So you get an additional override ability if you're already overrided. Until the start of your next command phase, that ability is active for your unit. That's really cool. Okay, so the designer's note explains that. So this means that if the target unit already has Halo Override, it can be affected by multiple override abilities at the same time, but suffers mortal wounds for doing so. And then if it doesn't have the Halo Override keyword, it doesn't suffer the D3, but it benefits from that ability. That's pretty good. That's until the start of your next command phase, too, so that's pretty awesome. Normally, abilities like this only work for the phase that they're in, so it's pretty good. We have Aggressive Impulse. Your movement phase, one Scorpius Dune Rider model from your army that has not been selected to move. So it looks like until the end of your turn, each time an Adeptus Mechanicus unit disembarks from that model after it has made a normal move, that unit is still eligible to declare a charge. So they gave them a 1 CP assault ramp, everybody. A 1 CP assault ramp for the Adeptus Mechanicus. So again, they have everything so far, right? They have all these cool damage buffs. They have 3 damage buffs, and now we're into the part where we're going to get some utility stuff. So they have a utility thing right here. Guided Retreat makes a fallback move, looks like it's eligible to shoot and declare a charge in which it fell back. Look at that. So it gets the Eldar, you know, feigned retreat for 1 CP. That's fine, I guess. But then if it's a Halo override unit, you can reroll desperate escape tests taken for it as well. So, yeah, that's pretty insane. So, oh, God. Really powerful, guys. Really powerful for only 1 CP. And again, Eldar do have it, but we don't have the desperate escape tests part of it, so that does matter. That means you can move through enemy units now and not really have to worry about losing models. Analytical Divination. Let's see what this one is. I think this is the one that I hate the most. When your opponent's movement... Okay, so it's your opponent's move phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. Yep, this is the one I hate. One Adeptus Mechanicus infantry unit. So here's the thing, right? It's just infantry that gets it, so that's okay. But if an enemy unit ends a movement within 9, you get to move up to D6, so it's Phantasm within 9 if an enemy moves within 9. But if it's a Halo Override unit, it gets to move up to the full 6. I think in and of itself, it's not that bad, right? It's like, is every single unit going to be Halo Override at all times? No. And that's what I think makes this Adeptus Mechanicus thing balanced, because it's not going to be their whole army, right? It's only going to be 2, maybe 3 units out of their army that are going to get the override. But these are really good, and it's really going to be hard to play against a really good Adeptus Mechanicus player with this detachment. It's going to be extremely difficult, and in some cases, I would say it's probably going to be impossible for some people to win. I think it's really hard for Eldar to beat this just because we're not good at dealing with hordes unless we build for it, and I think we're going to have to start getting used to building higher damage units in our army to deal with these. Again, things like Wind Riders, right? A lot of people knock on Wind Riders. Wind Riders are probably one of our best answers to Adeptus Mechanicus just because we can scythe through entire units at a time. I haven't played against Adeptus Mechanicus in quite a while, to be honest with you. I haven't played against him since 8th edition, which is a long time. But I usually bring Wind Riders with me, and I think if I brought Wind Riders, that would be like my saving grace against this, because if you look at their stratagems, they really have no defensive strats. So units that can just pop out, shoot, and then fire and fade back into cover are pretty effective against this, because they can just dominate the battlefield. But here's the thing. The counterplay to that is that this Adeptus Mechanicus player can go, oh, I'm going to pick up my unit of, I don't know what they're called. They're the horse people, the long striders or something like that. They have the mechanical horses, or mechanical birds or whatever. I don't know. The Adeptus Mechanicus is weird. Anyway, they have these mechanical birds. You can add 2 to the movement characteristic, and then you can override them again. They suffer D3 mortal wounds, but they can also charge in advance. And they have insane movement. So they can just charge your Wind Riders, and if you're positioned poorly so you can't overwatch them, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to really, you're probably going to lose that unit. So yeah, it's there's quite a few things that can really mess up your day as an Eldar player, and I think this detachment's going to be very strong against most Eldar builds. And I think obviously the Avatar of Cain with crits on 5 lethal hits, or, if you look at the enhancement up here, it's taking a while to load, sorry about that. You see, for example, where is it? Yeah, 6 to the range characteristic, and you can reroll hazardous, so all those dev wound weapons that are normally hazardous or not hazardous, that's going to be really good. And yeah, I just think this is a really cool detachment. Breathe some life into the army. Only really the top tier players would even attempt to play competitively because they were just they just really liked the strategic ability of the army and the kind of niche abilities that the army had, kind of like an Eldar army. I mean, this army is really the Eldar or Dark Eldar of the Imperium. So it makes sense that players would have a hard time playing this army. It's also one of the most expensive armies out there to buy and collect. So you're only going to see people who are really competitive, or you're going to see people who are whales, essentially, GW Warhammer whales, who just, are willing to drop 4K on an army and be fine with it. But yeah, I think this is absolutely amazing. It's really cool. I think this is a good detachment for AdMech players. Well done, guys. Okay, moving on, we have the Necron one. Now, I just want to say this. If the previous detachment with AdMech was one of the best in the game, but the models and the number of units you can select for the override ability prevented it from being totally busted and broken and stuff. This is and by the way, I still think AdMech is going to win more tournaments, obviously, with the best players in the world commanding them because it's just so good. But this Necron detachment is like totally just beat stick city. Think about, what's a good comparison? I don't know. Think about Eldar when they came out for the first time in the beginning of the edition, right? And how good they were. I think it's not that good, but it's going to be seriously good. It's probably going to be like when the Orcs Codex came out for the first time and like everyone was playing Bully Boys and Bully Boys had like a 58% win rate and like plus. I think it's going to be like that. So this is the Starshatter arsenal. And as if Necrons needed another good detachment, right? So their detachment rule, each time a Necron model from your army makes an attack that targets a unit within range of one or more objective markers, add 1 to the hit roll. So that's already better than the Thousand Suns one that was like, reroll a wound roll of 1. Okay, so in addition, ranged weapons equipped by Necron vehicle and Necron mounted models, excluding Titanic, which I don't think there's many Titanic models. I don't think the monolith is Titanic, but I may be wrong. Maybe it is. From your army have the assault ability. So it gives assault to all your vehicles and mounted units. That, by the way, is actually really good with Necrons. It would be horrible with Eldar because Eldar are already pretty fast and they're fragile. But because Necrons are tough, you're now pushing your army to be really fast and really durable, and armies that are really fast and really durable are often really difficult to deal with unless their points are adjusted accordingly. So let's take a look at their enhancements. This by itself isn't super OP, but it's pretty good. Dread Majesty, it's an aura ability. So it's an Overlord or Catacombs command barge. It makes sense that it's an aura. While a friendly Necron unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1, reroll a wound roll of 1. And that's on top of +1 to hit. So that's pretty good. That's a really good aura, guys. That's a reroll 1s to hit and wound aura. Whew. Okay, and by the way, this is for every Necron's unit. That includes a vehicle. So that includes things like Doomsday Arcs, which I'll talk about in a second. Miniaturized New Blue Scope. 15 points. Necron model only. Ranged weapons equipped by the bearer's unit have the Ignores Cover ability. Great. Eldar have to spend 55 points for Ignores Cover on Wind Riders, but they get it for 15. Awesome. Demanding Leader. 10 points. Necron model only. In your movement phase, select one Necron's vehicle or mounted unit within 6 inches of the bearer until the start of your next command phase. That unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. I think that's pretty good, but you have to be really close to the bearer, so I think this may be kind of niche, but for 10 points, it can afford to be niche. Chrono Impedance Fields, 25 points. Necron model only. In your command phase, select one friendly Necron vehicle or mounted unit within 6 inches of the bearer. Until your next command phase, each time an attack is allocated to a model in that unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack. Wow, right? Again, I don't know if the monolith is Titanic, but if it is Titanic, that they can't be used. But if it isn't, my God, a monolith with a permanent -1 damage. Oh, geez, right, guys? I mean, and then you can target other vehicles or mounted units with it as well, like Doomsday Arcs. And every Necron unit, Doomsday Arc and, all that stuff, they all have a 4+ invul save, and they all have reanimation, and they all have all sorts of stuff. So, pretty good enhancements. They give you damage, ignores cover, rerolls of 1 state wound, and -1 damage to any unit within 6 inches. You get to select it at the start of your command phase every single time. And by the way, it says Necron model only. You could just have a Catacomb command bar, just hide behind a ruin, and just use this every single turn on something. It's really strong. Now, I would say that if it was just this, it might be okay, right? If the stratagems were, equaled out, balanced out. But then you look at the strats here. Merciless Reclamation. Your shooting or fight phase, one Necron unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight until the end of the phase. Each time a model makes an attack, the target of that attack is within range of one or more objective markers. Add 1 to the wound roll. So so I'm going to go back for a second because check this out. This stacks. So you're getting +1 to hit. You're adding +1 to hit. You're getting rerolls of 1 to hit and 1 to wound. And then on top of that, you are getting +1 to wound. So anything on an objective is just going to die. So yeah, that's a pretty strong stratagem. Now going to the next one here, we have Unyielding Forms. And this is another pretty powerful strat, especially one that you can use on a vehicle. So target Necron vehicle or Necron mounted unit in the shooting or fight phase. Till the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, if the strength is greater than the toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. That may not seem like that big of a deal, but Necron vehicles are not known for having a super high toughness value. They're kind of known for having a good invul save. So realistically, this is just going to be the Warwalker ability, -1 to wound. This is a fortune, essentially, which is really powerful, especially on those bigger vehicles. Now, our next one is Chrono Shift. And again, we see a very powerful ability that the Eldar have, actually. And it's kind of looking a lot like an Eldar detachment. It's really given Eldar vibes. You got Fortune, you got a 6-inch advance from Chrono Shift, so it's an automatic 6-inch advance for a vehicle. Now, of course, it is only Necron vehicle or mounted unit. It's not anything like Matchless Agility is, so it's not as good as the Eldar one. But in this particular detachment, you're probably only going to be running mostly vehicles and mounted units anyway. So that's a pretty powerful strat. We have Dimensional Tunnel, and this is pretty insane. It's kind of like the Raven Wing stratagem from the Dark Angels. Your movement phase, one Necron's vehicle or mounted unit until the end of the phase, models in your unit can move horizontally through models and terrain features. So you can move straight through a ruin, which, I mean, I think what it is about this is that you combine this with the ability to advance as well. So you could advance 6 inches, right? So check this out. If you have the CP for it, you could use Chrono Shift. You could add 6 inches to your move. You have assault on all your tanks, on all your vehicles. You target with Dimensional Tunnel, and a Necron vehicle like a Doomsday Arc can advance, boom, right through a terrain piece and hit something really important and destroy it. Now, you're not always going to be doing that, obviously, but it's a threat that you have to watch out for. So it is a very good combination there. You also have Endless Servitude. End your fight phase, one Necron's unit from your army that is within range of an objective marker you control. Your unit's reanimation protocols activate. So just basically gives you more durability. Not the best in the world, but it is pretty good when, you're trying to get your vehicle out of damage range. If it gets damaged and not fully killed, you can just, reanimation reanimate it back to an undamaged state. And then we have, of course, reactive reposition, which is very similar to the AdMech thing, where it happens in your shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot. So it's not something that's based on movement, but you target one Necron's unit from your army, excluding Titanic. That was the target. Your unit can make a normal move of up to d6 or 6 inches if it's a mounted or vehicle unit. So this is insane, guys. It basically means that you can pull out a terrain, get shot once by something, and then just pop back in. It's kind of like a 1 CP Fire and Fade. I know it's not as good as Fire and Fade, but it's also only one command point. It's also with an army that typically has 4+ invuls on everything, so they have a 50% chance of not suffering damage anyway, right? So this army is really hard to kill. This army has a ton of damage, and this army is honestly very fast. So yeah, it's going to be really strong, no doubt. And Necrons are already doing really well. They have some of the best vehicle data sheets in the game, arguably, with the Doomsday Arc. I haven't even talked about the Wraith Stalkers, or I don't really know what they're exactly called, but they're the, many-legged, kind of spider-looking things. They have a lot of good vehicles in their army, and this is going to just make them really powerful. So I'm actually thinking there's going to be some sort of nerf to Necrons coming up, and this starshatter arsenal is just GW saying, hey, we increased the cost of all of your units. Here's a really good detachment so you can still win games, because we're just going to throw the book at you. So yeah, this is going to be really powerful basically. And by the way, I want to just mention this. As for the Eldar aspect to this, how are Eldar going to deal with this? Well, there's a couple of list types, and also, by the way, the AdMech detachment, I think, kind of pushes this home. There's a couple of list archetypes in Eldar that are just not going to work anymore in the meta, and I think Triple Brick is one. I think Triple Brick is officially dead, and I may be speaking too soon, but after all this stuff comes out, Wraithguard, Avatar of Cain, even your Brain Brick, to a lesser extent, I think are not going to be as great, because you have a lot of really fast, really hard-hitting combo stuff that can just get up there really quick and shoot you to death, right? Wraithguard are not going to be able to deal with 3 Doomsday Arcs shooting damage 3. I think they're AP -3 or AP -4 attacks. I think it's AP -3 though. They're just not going to be able to deal with it. Even with Fortune, you're adding 1 to the wound roll with Merciless Reclamation. You're getting, sorry for the blur there. You're getting +1 to, or rerolls 1 to hit, rerolls 1 to wound on one of them. You're getting just a bunch of bonuses. You're getting +1 to hit. It's insane, right? It's absolutely insane. So yeah, you're going to be absolutely devastated by this detachment. It's not even going to be close. Wraithguard are going to be wiped off the objective in 1 turn. Maybe 2 if you get lucky, but probably 1 turn. Avatar of Cain, same thing there. Avatar of Cain, don't expect him to survive that long against 3 Doomsday Arcs, especially when they're re-rolling their wounds, and they're getting +1 to wound. Even if you have Fortune, it's just not going to be enough. You're not going to be able to make that many invul saves unless you're really lucky. So yeah, that's where I kind of am with the Necron one. It totally destroys armies that are relying on scoring primary objectives. The list I talked to you about earlier with the Tyranids, Necrons just absolutely dump on it. This is one of the ones that, oh, and the word I was looking for previously was skew. It's the Tyranid detachment is a skew type list. Necrons just have the tools to deal with that now. 72 warriors, well, I'm going to kill 18 a turn. And that's this list. And 18 plus, right? I could easily see this army killing, you know, 3 units a turn of Nid warriors. It's just that powerful, right? And if you guys don't believe me, check out the data sheet for the Necron Doomsday arc with all the kind of support options you can give it with this detachment, and also the other stuff that you can kind of bake into a Necron list, and tell me that a triple Doomsday arc can't kill 18 warriors in a single turn, right? I mean, maybe the Tyranid player gets lucky and rolls a bunch of 5-up invuls. That'd be great, right? If they're just rolling 5-ups all day, then maybe they can survive. But other than that, I think on average dice, you're losing a lot of warriors. I don't know the exact math on it, but I'm thinking between the Doomsday arcs and other units, you're probably going to lose everything on the center objectives. So that's going to be insane. I think it's Wraithguard. I want to just say this. I think Wraithguard are a great unit, but in this meta that we find ourselves in, there's just too much in the game that's too lethal. We're getting detachments that can just absolutely demolish things on objectives, right? So I just really don't think that Wraithguard have a place for 500 points. And I think really the better thing to do with Eldar is to just put cheap stuff on the objectives that your opponent has to deal with, right? Your opponent's going to have to move units out to engage that stuff, and your units are going to be much cheaper than theirs, so it's going to be fine. Like, for example, Corsairs, Rangers, put that stuff on the objective, put 3 units on objectives, you know, Corsairs have OC10, Rangers have OC5, and say, hey, come get me. You're either gonna, move your models out to engage me and be out in the open for all my, hard hitting stuff to kill, or you're just going to have to leave them on the objective and let me score some primary points. Your choice, right? So I think that's really what you have to do here. A lot of the Eldar killing stuff, the Wraithguard, the Avatar Arcane, it's just too expensive. You're basically left with models that, although really good, are going to die and end up not scoring you many primary points. So I think that's kind of the way we have to do it now with these types of detachments. Let's go ahead and check out the last detachment here. It's actually not a detachment at all, it's an index. So we're going to look at the Deathwatch. It's cool that they got an index. I thought it was kind of BS that GW kind of erased them for a little bit. It was a rug pull for sure. And let's go ahead and look at their rules. So first of all, they have this rule: kill teams. Each time an attack targets a kill team unit from your army that contains models with different toughness characteristics, you use the majority toughness. That makes sense. That was a rule in past editions. If 2 or more toughness characteristics are tied for the majority, use the highest. Again, that's pretty cool, right? That makes them a little bit tougher when you have things like Terminators and regular dudes in the same unit. For the purposes of determining which models can embark in a transport, kill team models follow the normal restrictions listed on the transport model. Okay, yes, right. So you have to actually, if it's a Terminator, it's probably going to take up 2 spaces. If it's a regular guy, it's going to take up 1 space. You can't put bikes in transports. You can't put other vehicles in transports, right? So that's basically what it is. It follows those restrictions. Okay, so that's their army rule. It's kind of garbage, but it actually makes sense when you think about how Deathwatch is going to operate on the battlefield, because their detachment rule is pretty strong. So, the restrictions: you can only take Deathwatch units with the exception of Kill Team Cassius. You cannot include any Agents of the Imperium Deathwatch units because, of course, Agents of the Imperium came out, so, you can't double dip on that. And your army can't include all these units, right? Now, a lot of these units are pretty good, but they're nothing to really, worry about too much. I think maybe scouts, just because they have infiltrate, but that's about it. I don't think anything else really matters here. Of course, scouts aren't going to be in Deathwatch, right? They're too young, they're too inexperienced. So let's look at the rule here. Mission tactics: at the start of your command phase, you can select one of the mission tactics Either your whole army gets sustained hits 1, they get lethal hits, or they get precision on a critical hit. Honestly, I think these are good, right? Lethal hits is really strong. It's one of the best abilities in the game right now. But basically, every army that's winning tournaments has some sort of ability to just spam lethal hits. Sustained hits is good. It's not as good, but it's still decent. And then you have precision, which is on a crit, which is okay, but when you consider you can put out a lot of dice, this actually becomes pretty cool. So you can another reason not to really want to run Wraithguard and stuff like that, just because it's just too easy to kill them nowadays. It really is. At the beginning of the edition, it was really hard to kill Wraithguard. It was really hard to kind of deal with them, but now it's too easy. We definitely need some sort of detachment for Wraiths to make them stronger and tougher. Okay, let's go and look at the stratagems. You got Armor of Contempt, which is a classic, -1 AP. You got Adaptive Tactics, which you can choose up to 2 kill team units, and you can target them with the different tactics. So, the lethal hits, the sustained hits, the, critical precision. You can go ahead and target them with that. They get the selected tactic instead of what you selected before. So, why is this important? Well, it's important because you want to have lethal hits every single turn. You want units that can target with lethal hits every single time, right? Because you're going against probably tough stuff that needs to be dropped. Lethal hits mathematically against tougher targets, then the strength characteristic of your weapons is going to be much more powerful than sustained hits, right? So you want to pretty much use this every single turn that you can to give your models lethal hits when they don't have access to it as a whole army, because you can only use those tactics once per battle. Okay, so that's adaptive tactics. We have Hellfire rounds, which is really strong. You select one unit, you give them anti-infantry 2+ and anti-monster 2+, except for devastating wound weapons. So they do say no anti-infantry 2+ devastating wounds, right? But that's still pretty good, right? That's still anti-infantry. You're still wounding on 2+ against infantry, 5+ against monsters, which is okay, I guess. I think the infantry is probably the better bet here. And that's really good, right? So you have Hellfire rounds, you have Kraken rounds. So on this one, you target a kill team unit, you improve the armor penetration characteristic of your ranged weapons by 1 and improve the range by 6. That's pretty good as well, right? Especially if you have something with lethal hits that's, auto wounding stuff. It's really good. Now, of course, you can't use this on a unit that you also targeted with Hellfire or Dragonfire. So let's check out Dragonfire rounds. So it gives you assault and ignores cover. I think this is probably the worst one out of the three, personally, but it's very situational. It's still okay, especially if your unit is going up against something that has a bonus to their cover or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I really don't think this is good, actually, to come to think of it, because you have Kraken rounds that just give you AP -1 anyway. So, and boost the range of your weapons, and this is just giving you assault. I think there's some cases where you want assault so you can actually move on to objectives and stuff like that, but yeah, this is situational. And then you have site-to-site teleportation. You pick up to 2 kill team units, and you remove them from the battlefield into Strat Reserve, and then they can deep strike next turn. That's pretty good, right? That's just Skyleap, essentially. End of your opponent's fight phase, which is Skyleap. So you're going to pick 2 units, Skyleap them. Uppy downy. Pretty good for 1 CP. I think that's awesome. Gives them some mobility. The army lacks mobility, so there you go. So there's that. What else do we got? So we got the enhancements. You got the Thief of Secrets, so that gives you, looks like you improve the strength, damage, armor penetration characteristics of the bearer's melee weapons by 1. If you've killed something, you increase those by 2 instead until the end of the battle. That's really awesome. That's actually really strong. Think about that on something like a Thunderhammer, right? A Thunderhammer or a Power Fist with, let's see, what is that? Strength 10, AP -4, and then, is there anything else? Yeah, and damage 4. That's going to be absolutely insane. That's pretty good. You have the Osseous Key, Watchmaster or Tech Marine model. Select one enemy vehicle unit within 12. They take a leadership test. If the test is passed, until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract one from the hit roll. If the test is failed, that unit cannot shoot. Wow. So that's pretty good. It's like if you fail a battle shock, can't shoot. You do have to be within 12 though, so that is kind of an issue with that one. You have Beacon Angelus, Adaptus Source. Yeah, Astartes, of course, Adaptus Astartes. I keep wanting to call them Space Marines, but that's, I guess, the official name now. Models in the Bearers unit have the Deep Strike ability. Great. In addition, you can target the Bearers unit with Rapid Ingress for 0 CP. Also awesome. That's a great stratagem, man. It's like, or that's a great enhancement, you know? Free Rapid Ingress. I'll take that. And you give them Deep Strike? Awesome. Alright, Watchmaster and Captain model only, once per battle. If you've selected your Oath of Moment target, you can use this enhancement if it is... Okay, so you can select a second unit to Oath of Moment. Again, that's also awesome. Wow, okay, there you go. You select an Oath of Moment target, then you select a second Oath of Moment target. That's great. Okay, so it looks like they're pretty good. Now, of course, they have all the data sheets and stuff. We're not going to go into the data sheets too much. Again, like I said, I'm not a Space Marine player. This looks like a really fun detachment. They look really elite. The points costs, I hear, are pretty high for them. I mean, obviously, I could be a little bit off on that, but it seems like this is just a really elite Space Marine force. Kind of like Grey Knights, I would compare them to, except with, some real hard hitting ability against infantry and maybe like less mortal wound spam. So they're less about mortal wounds and more about things like lethal hits. I think that's what I would compare them to. They probably have some unique kill teams that can, kind of have a mix of different weapons, so that's pretty neat. Yeah, I think this is cool. I think, this is basically what Deathwatch players wanted. They wanted a, index with good army rules. The only thing is, they don't really have an army rule other than, well, I guess they do, right? It's Oath of Moment. So there you go. They have Oath of Moment. And they have this bonus kill team thing that makes them a little more durable when you have different toughness values in the unit. But yeah, that's about it. Deathwatch looks good. I don't know what they're going to have tomorrow, but we'll see. I'll make one of these every single week. I'll post it up on the weekend and we'll kind of review and stuff like that. I think this army is going to be, pretty easy to be honest with you guys. I think this is an easy Aeldari win as long as you're not running, triple brick or something like that where they could just Oath of Moment, just destroy your whole Wraithguard unit in one turn. I think this is a pretty good matchup for the Eldar. We have things that can honestly just rip these models apart. So, we have things like fire dragons, falcons that could just, pulse laser, entire units down and melt entire units down. We have things like wind riders who could just wipe through an entire unit. So, yeah, it's going to be tough, especially if they're able to outmaneuver you with their stratagems and so forth. But it's really going to require tactical play from the Deathwatch player to be able to, kind of outspeed the Eldar, which, again, I like that. I like those kind of cat and mouse games. If we can see more of that, that'd be awesome. They're not as fast as the Eldar, but they are a little more durable and hard hitting in some respects. So that would be an interesting matchup now. It's not just an auto win anymore like it used to be, where it was just like it just wasn't good, right? Deathwatch just were not good. I think this has some teeth. I think this army actually has some teeth and will perform okay in competitive play going forward. Okay, guys, so that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think of these new detachments in the comment section. I think that this is going to change the meta of the game you know, pretty much guaranteed. We're going to see a lot less primary scoring units be successful for the Aeldari, and we're going to see a lot more, MSU style, I think, return because of how much damage a lot of these detachments are now packing. We're really going to need to be better at trading, and I think that's really where where our success is going to lie until we get our codex, until we get new detachments ourselves to see, what kind of durability boosts, for example, wraiths are going to get, or, what bonuses the Avatar of Cain or Aspect Warriors are going to get, right? So we're going to need to see a little bit more on that. Okay, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much to all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last 2 years. I am going to have a 2-year video coming out soon. I've been so busy with, projects and other stuff, I haven't been able to do it, but I am going to have that out soon. If you do want to support the channel and join the Patreon for free, I do have free trials activated, which means you just have to cancel it before they charge you, but that will give you permanent access to our Discord community, which is a community of Eldar players and enthusiasts who love talking about strategies, tactics, and of course hobbying. And obviously, I'm going to be there as well, and I'm pretty active on the Discord myself. So, come join us and come talk. And, if you need help or tips or strategies or whatever, I'm the man for it, and there's a lot of other people on there who are actually better players than me, tournament level players who consistently play in GTs and stuff, who can give you some really good advice. Also, I have an Amazon affiliate link. If you want some discounted Eldar minis, there might not be that much time left for combat patrols. So, grab your, if you're going to grab one, grab it now before it gets taken off the GW store. And lastly, if you want to search for, maybe a little Christmas gift for yourself, some kind of apparel to wear around the game store, I also have my channel store page for that. So, check out the Eldar designs that are on there, rep your favorite faction at your local game store, and have a good time. And maybe buy one for a friend that hates the Eldar, and it would be a great prank gift. Talk about prank gifts. I mean, just get them I have a couple of funny ones on there, and I'm not going to say it here, but there's some funny ones you can buy them, and it's a great prank. Honestly, it's honestly top tier prank. So anyway, all right, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.